Interest rates have been cut, inflation is still elevated, and the most recent jobs report from earlier this month was bad. And yet, we are supposed to believe that the economy is relatively strong. Now, I am not an economist, not that I have to remind you guys of that, but I don't think that it takes an economist to look at this data and to feel how life is currently like and to recognize that something isn't right. And it hasn't been right for a long time. Now, I've been making YouTube videos for going on 6 years now, and one of the topics that I've consistently talked about post-pandemic is the fact that our debt situation is unsustainable. And that, in my opinion, it's not a matter of if, but when it all comes crashing down. I mean, let's rewind a bit and take a look at the pandemic. According to pandemicoversight.gov, more than 476 million payments were sent out to Americans in the form of stimulus, totaling $814 billion. This was throughout 3 rounds of stimulus, which varied from $600 per income tax filer all the way up to $1,400, as well as from $500 per child up to $1,400 per child. And while the majority of stimulus funds were actually used to either pay down debt or put money into savings, which is something that I do think is important to note, because I do think that there is a bit of a misconception with stimulus and government aid specifically, where that money is simply flushed down the toilet on frivolous spending, and whenever it comes to the pandemic, it is factually untrue. Because according to the National Bureau of Economic Research, 31% of stimulus payments went towards debt payments, while 27% went towards savings, and the additional 42% went towards spending, whether that be on healthcare, food, household products, durable goods, or other. And I want you to remember that 42% figure because I do think that this is playing a major role here and is part of the catalyst into this debt situation that I talk so much about. And so sure, a good chunk of stimulus payments were spent on things like paying down debt and putting money towards savings, but that additional 42% was spent on buying things. And after the pandemic, so around 2021, something changed with consumer spending and debt specifically, which caused debt to absolutely skyrocket. You can see here that around Q1 of 2021, debt, both housing debt and non-housing debt, began to skyrocket. And non-housing debt went from $4.15 trillion in Q1 of 2021 to $4.66 trillion in 2023, while housing debt increased from $10.5 trillion in Q1 of 2021 to $12.38 trillion in Q1 of 2023. And when we dig deeper into the more narrow categories, you can see that all categories of debt, from mortgage debt, auto loan, credit cards, have been steadily increasing over the last 5 years. And the thing is, this is nothing new, and this isn't even a new topic that I've discussed on this channel. We've explored how car prices and the expenses associated with owning a car have absolutely skyrocketed over the last few years. We know that the average vehicle transaction price of a car went up from $38,948 in January of 2020 to $49,077 just this past month, a 26% increase over this period of time. We also know that more people than ever are getting locked into $1,000 car loans. We also know that 1 in 4 trade-ins have negative equity, a historical high of $6,574 in negative equity according to Edmunds. And you may also be aware that credit card debt has reached all-time high levels, sitting at $1.21 trillion as of Q2 of this year, which is up over 50% from the pandemic lows whenever consumers were using their stimulus payments to pay down their debt like credit cards. You may also know that as of Q2 of this year, mortgage payments hit an all-time high, all the while delinquencies or transition into delinquencies are going up, in some cases to all-time highs. Though credit card delinquencies, still elevated, have declined in the most recent quarter per the New York Federal Reserve. And I could probably go on forever. The point here is that debt has been climbing. And the fact of the matter is, people are beginning to fall behind on their debt. And I want to point something out important here, because I don't want to make a video and sending out a message that I feel as though debt is always the result of being irresponsible. That is the sole responsibility of the consumer to stay out of debt. Because while this is true in many cases, it isn't necessarily true in many others. And sure, irresponsible spending will in many cases result in these types of debts that we're talking about in this video. We also have to recognize the macro changes that took place during this period of time as well, like the fact that the wealth gap is widening, and the fact that wages for lower to middle income families simply aren't keeping up. And as a result, credit card usage has increased for these same demographics. The bottom line is that debt is increasing and the data is showing that people are falling more and more behind. And so, whenever the most recent jobs report for August came out and showed that the job market was weaker than we expected, with only 22,000 jobs being added instead of the 76,500 jobs that were expected, or the fact that the revised jobs data showed that in recent years job growth was overstated, making the economy weaker than we initially expected, the thoughts of many is that, well, this is not good. Because one could argue that for a while post-pandemic, stimulus and the effects of the stimulus payments were sort of carrying the debt situation. Then it was a strong job market, then it was credit cards. But what happens whenever the job market weakens? Stimulus has been dry for a long time, and credit cards are no longer viable. Well, it results in delinquencies, repossessions, foreclosures. I don't really have a conclusion to this video other than the fact that I think that this is an important topic to talk about and to point out the fact that red flags are popping up all over the place. Not only for the economy, but for individual market segments like the car market. And this is a time where I would personally, A, be super mindful about staying within your means whenever it comes to buying a car, or B, potentially hold off on buying a car because I do think that if things continue to decline economically, the car market will shift along with it. And as a result of this, discounts could potentially come. But truthfully, I think with all of this considered, car discounts are probably the least of our worries, and making sure that we're handling our own personal debt should be top of mind. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.